Dad, the woman from the photo in your wallet is crying. Let's give her a pie. Approaching the homeless woman, the father was stunned. Sam, dear. I am leaving. Please, don't look for me and don't try to bring me back. You can be happy with someone else. Take care of our daughter. Helen. Sam had probably read this note more than 1 billion times. He read it and couldn't understand what had made his beloved wife leave it in the maternity ward where they had stayed with their newborn daughter and simply disappear. She didn't come back to collect her things, not even her recently bought paints for decorating stones. She even left her phone in the drawer next to the bed. It was very strange. Sam scrutinized every letter as if trying to find an answer to the question that had tormented him for all these years. Why? Why did she leave? Why did she abandon their daughter and him, Sam? They had been eagerly awaiting the baby's arrival. There was no answer. There was only pain in his heart and a complete lack of understanding of his wife's behavior. This lack of understanding literally gnawed at Sam's brain. He had to finish school in a new school for him and live in a foreign city. Sam met Helen on the bank of a quiet river, near where their houses were located. He had just arrived in this town with his parents. It had become difficult for his mother to live in the big city due to asthma, so the doctor advised them to move to a quieter place near a body of water. Sam wandered around the area and ended up on the riverbank. A girl was sitting on a rock. She had clearly just gone for a swim. Water was dripping from her short braid, probably hastily plaited a few minutes ago. Her black sports swimsuit highlighted all her advantages, a slim waist and well-developed feminine chest. "Hi," greeted Sam. "Hi," she turned around. "You just need a tail," smiled the boy. "Huh," the girl squeezed out her braid a little. "You look like a mermaid. Just need a tail." "Oh, right. I love this rock. Someday, I will paint it. For now, I only dare to paint the smaller ones." "What do you paint with?" asked Sam with interest, sitting down on the sand near the rock where the mermaid without a tail was perched. "Usually with acrylic paints. Sometimes with watercolors. But I don't like watercolors because you have to varnish it, otherwise it will all go to waste." "I see. I'm Sam. And I'm Helen. I haven't seen you in our town before. Did you just move here, or are you visiting someone?" "We moved here yesterday. We used to live in a big city, but my mom has asthma, so the doctor insisted on moving to a quieter place by the water. So, here we are. How is it here? Is it boring?" "It depends. I really like it here. But you see, I'm not a party girl. Sometimes I visit the local club, but only because of my friend. She dreams of leaving here, moving to a big city, immersing herself in the hustle and bustle that won't let her think about anything. But I don't want that. I want to think. So I come here early in the morning to swim, sit, think, and enjoy the peace and quiet." "Helen," Sam suddenly said slyly, will you show me everything here so I can quickly become a local guy?" He smiled with his white-toothed smile and instantly won the girl's heart. "Sure, I'll show you. It only takes 2 hours to walk around and remember everything. My friend Vicky jokes that our town is perfect for people with spatial disorientation because you can't get lost here." "Cool. Do you live with your parents?" "No, with my grandma. She raised me. My mom had me and then ran after my dad, afraid someone would take him away. He had gone to work. My mom planned to return and take me with her. But then they both died in the car. That's the story. Sorry, I didn't mean to burden you with my problems right away." "No, it's interesting. You can tell me more. Maybe you have something else weighing on you." Sam smiled and looked at Helen with his kind light brown eyes. "Cool, now I have a personal therapist," giggled Helen. From that day on, these two were almost inseparable. They never got bored with each other. Sam's parents accepted the girl well and often invited her to dinner and various family celebrations. The young couple also planned to attend college together. Listen, Helen, Sam once started as they walked home from school. Let's get married right after graduation so we can get a room for two in the dormitory. We'll study and live together, then we'll come back home. I was expecting a more romantic proposal, Helen pouted playfully, but since you're so rough, okay, I agree. Well, sorry, the idea just came to me, so I didn't have time to buy a ring and all that. He stopped, quickly pulled the girl close, and kissed her. This kiss had everything: love, tenderness, care, happiness, joy. Helen wanted these few moments to last forever. Her head was spinning, and there were no thoughts left in it. This wasn't their first kiss, but it still felt special, almost pre-wedding. Everything happened as planned. The lovers got married almost immediately after graduating from high school and attended college, although in different departments. Sam and Helen returned home, as agreed, but now as professionals. He was a programmer with teaching rights, and she was a primary school technology teacher. They started living with Helen's grandmother. She already needed help, plus she was lonely and adored her granddaughter and her husband. Helen got a job at her old school, and Sam mostly worked remotely. A year after their return, Helen found out she was expecting a baby. Helen, we're going to have a baby, Sam rejoiced quietly. I've just been offered a collaboration with a company. The terms are very favorable. Really? That's great. We'll be able to buy everything we need for our baby. And renovate this house, even patch it up. I hope Grandma won't mind. Sam always called Helen's grandmother Grandma as if she were his own. It always happens when you meet truly your people. Sam, I'm so happy, Helen said, resting her head on her husband's shoulder. And I'm happy too. I want to be with you always, until we're very old, when my hands will tremble and I'll lose all my teeth. Sam, what a picture you painted, Helen chuckled. But I agree to live with you until that time. They both burst out laughing, hugging each other. Helen and Sam's little daughter was born at the beginning of autumn. Helen sent Sam photos and warm messages. He visited his girls as soon as he was allowed. But on the third day after giving birth, Helen vanished as if into thin air, leaving Sam with a strange note that he kept reading over and over, as if waiting for an answer to the question that had tormented him for the past 4 years. Helen never returned, never called, never wrote. Sammy, son, it can't be that my girl could just run away like that. She's loved you since the day you met on the shore. Something's not right here, said Grandma when Sam told her what had happened. I don't understand anything myself. Maybe she met her first love and old feelings rekindled? I mean, maybe someone called her. What first love? She started dating Eric, but he was such a deadbeat. I told her right away that she wouldn't be happy with him, but she didn't listen and ran to him for dates. By the way, I saw him not long before you found that stupid note in Helly's room. Could it really be that his wife ran off with that deadbeat guy? It was quite possible. Maybe she had a mental breakdown after giving birth. The police refused to open a case since there was a note explaining everything. The handwriting was definitely Helen's, so she wasn't considered missing, just hiding from her husband. Maggie, as they named the girl, grew up to be a very sweet child. She reminded Sam so much of Helen, the same cheerful, lively, and very kind nature. She was always ready to feed every stray cat or dog, help anyone who needed it. And Helen loved to paint, just like her mother. The rock by the river where Sam had met his mermaid several years ago remained unpainted. Daddy, Maggie started one night as Sam was tucking her into bed. Where is my mommy? Who is she? Your mommy. Your mommy is a mermaid. She gave me you and swam away on very important business. Sam suppressed a sigh. Why did she leave me? A mom should be with her daughter. You're right, sweetheart, but mermaids have their own rules. Then why did you find yourself a mermaid? Maggie pouted. You should have met an ordinary girl who wouldn't need to swim away to the sea. Tears welled up in Maggie's eyes. Maggie, honey, please don't cry. Sam wiped the tears from his beloved daughter's face with the back of his hand. You see, I couldn't help it. I fell in love. Dad, then we urgently need to find a normal mom. Not a mermaid, but an ordinary lady. That would be good, right? Maybe, my little one, but I can't love anyone else. That mermaid took my heart. What? Took it completely? So now you walk around heartless? Maggie stared at her father, her sky blue eyes wide open. No, that's just a way of saying that when you love someone, no one else matters. But I have you, and you have me. Can't we manage without Mom? I guess we can. Maggie smiled sadly and laid her head on the pillow. Sleep, my little angel, said her father tenderly and kissed his daughter on the forehead. Can we go sit on that rock tomorrow? Maybe she'll swim back, Maggie yawned and suggested. Let's go, agreed her father and turned off the lamp on the bedside table. Sleep well, my joy. I'll pack some pies for you, Grandma Cora bustled when the father and daughter were ready to go to the river. Maybe you shouldn't go today, Sammy? It looks like it might rain any minute, and the wind has picked up. We won't be long, Grandma. You know our Maggie can't be stopped once she's been promised something. It's very close. If it starts raining, we'll run back. Sam, you're a perfect father, Grandma sighed sadly. You could make any woman happy. No, don't, Sam put his hand on the old woman's wrinkled hand. I couldn't forget her, and I doubt I ever will. Maggie ran far ahead. The shore was deserted. Who else but these two would come here in such weather? Dad. Our rock is occupied. There's a lady crying there. She looks just like the lady in the photo in your wallet. Remember, you said she was an actress you liked in school and who brought you luck. What? Sam's head spun a little. Let's give her Grandma Cora's pie so she doesn't cry. The girl looked straight into her father's eyes. They approached the rock Helen had dreamed of painting. There sat a homeless woman. Her hair was tangled and hung like thin branches of an old tree, and she was wrapped in old rags. She was shaking from the cold. The woman was so thin it hurt to look at her. So far, Sam saw no resemblance to the photo. Here, have something to eat, Maggie said cheerfully as she ran up to the beggar. Our Grandma Cora baked these pies. The stranger on the rock lifted her head. Her eyes were clouded with tears, but they were her eyes, his beloved Helen's eyes. Helly, he stared at her, slowly sinking to the sand. Is it you? She sat motionless, staring at him indifferently. It seemed like she was drugged or just coming out of anesthesia. Sam, she asked hoarsely, licking her dry lips. Is that you? With these words, Helen began to lean towards him. Sam barely managed to catch her before she fell from the rock onto the sand. Dad, what's wrong with this actress? Why didn't she want to eat the pie? It's very tasty. Sweetie, we need to call an ambulance to help this actress. She seems really sick. Sam picked Helen up and started towards the road. Let's go, Maggie. Did she catch a cold? The girl asked, speeding up to keep up with her father. Yes, honey, she caught a cold. The hospital will take her in and treat her. But what about the mermaid, Dad? What if she was planning to come today to rest on that big rock? And we won't meet her. Maggie sobbed. Maggie, my dear, I didn't tell you the truth. She's not an actress. The woman in the photo you saw in my wallet is not an actress. She's a mermaid, the very one who gave me you and swam away on business, and now she's here. They finally reached the road. Sam leaned Helen against a tree, letting her rest her back on the thick trunk, and dialed for an ambulance. Sam was terrified that this was just an illusion, that his beloved would soon disappear again. Why had she returned? Why in such a terrible state? What had happened to her? Where had his Helly been all these years? The sound of tires on a gravel path brought the man back to reality. Sam and Maggie didn't go with Helen. She didn't have any documents with her, and Sam couldn't find anything at home either. Luckily, there was a birth certificate. He had to rush home to grab it and take it to the clinic to confirm her identity. Helen was severely dehydrated, with traces of strong sleeping pills and other substances in her blood. She had clearly been drugged recently, but no one could understand why. Helen was silent, staring at a single point without saying a word. But Sam knew his wife would come around because she had recognized him and called his name on the shore, sitting on the rock. She will likely need psychological help. The woman is in shock, and she has definitely been through severe stress. All her veins are punctured. Blood was clearly drawn from her. They might have done something to her spine too. Maybe they took spinal fluid. I can't say for sure yet. In about 3 days, you can take your wife home, the doctor said with some skepticism as he looked at Sam. Yes, we have to report this to the police. I was going to do that myself. Helen was clearly kidnapped and forced to write that silly note. And I have a feeling it's somehow connected to the maternity hospital where our daughter Maggie was born. The day came when Helen was discharged from the clinic. She now needed peace, good care, and the help of a psychotherapist. Sam came to pick up his wife alone. Maggie and Grandma stayed home to prepare a festive dinner. Grandma nearly fainted when Sam told her that her granddaughter had been found and would need to spend a few more days in the hospital. Grandma Kara decided to throw a celebration for Helen's return, preparing her favorite dishes and decorating the house with her favorite crepe paper flowers and balloons. Helen still wasn't talking to Sam. She sat silently in the car, curled up. Sam didn't know what to say, so he remained silent too. He thought his wife would feel much better once she was home. Home is where the heart is, after all. When they arrived at their renovated house, Maggie was sitting on the porch, wrapped in a jacket. It had started to drizzle, but the girl refused to go inside. "Is this my house?" Helen said with a hint of surprise in her voice as Sam helped her out of the car. "Yes, hell lie. Grandma and I fixed it up. Remember how we wanted to?" "Yes, I remember. I think. Who is this girl?" "Hell lie, this is our daughter, Maggie." "Our daughter?" Helen looked at her husband tiredly. "Daughter. They're here." Maggie jumped up and opened the door so Grandma could hear. The old woman appeared on the porch, wrapped in a checkered shawl. "Oh my God. My girl," she rushed to hug her granddaughter. Both were crying. That's good, thought Sam. Tears cleanse and relieve the soul. Helen was too weak, so she had to lie down. The celebration of her return was postponed until the evening. Helen slept for several hours, waking up noticeably better. There was a slight blush on her cheeks, though still very pale. Maggie didn't leave Helen's side for a minute, and Helen wouldn't let go of her daughter. The daughter she hadn't seen since the day she was forced to leave a note and flee the maternity hospital. Maggie fell asleep in her mother's arms. Sam carried the girl to the nursery. The three of them mostly talked about Maggie and their home. Sam was bursting with questions, but he decided to hold off. After all, the police were supposed to come tomorrow or call Helen to the station. Helen would have to talk a lot about what happened to her. "It's all him," Hell Lie suddenly started. "Dr. March. He wanted to save his only son at any cost. But he failed." Sam and Grandma remained silent, trying not to disturb the already exhausted Hell Lie. But she continued to speak, telling them the whole story of what happened to her from start to finish. Helen Fix woke up to some noise in the ward. When she opened her eyes, Dr. March was standing by her bed. He was looking for something in her nightstand, and when he found it, he shoved it into his pocket. It was only later that Helen realized it was her documents. He was wearing jeans and a sweater, with a white coat thrown over them. "What are you doing here?" Helen asked sleepily. "Now, Mrs. Fix, you will have to do something if you don't want anything to happen to your child." "What do you mean? Are you threatening me?" Helen sat up abruptly in bed. "Don't make sudden movements. Now you just need to write a little note for your husband, and then we need to go somewhere." Helen had to do everything the doctor told her. She was terrified for her daughter. They quickly exited through the back door and got into the car. Dr. March put handcuffs on her and ordered her to remain silent. He took Helen to a country house and led her to a basement-like room, which led to another door. As Helen understood, it was some sort of extension to the house. There was no sign of human habitation around. Hope for rescue was fading very quickly. "Why do you need me?" Helen tried to get the truth out of the doctor. "You are a doctor. You took the Hippocratic Oath. Your mission is to save lives, not hold them captive in a basement." "Shut up." Dr. March interrupted her rudely. "Life isn't as rosy and happy as you think. My son needs help. He needs constant blood transfusions and a bone marrow transplant. Only then is there a chance to beat this Gunter's disease." "Gunter's disease? Are you hiding from someone?" "Gunter's disease. When sunlight becomes deadly for a person. John was careless and exposed himself to sunlight. Now his life is hanging by a thread. But you can help him. You have the right blood, and genetically your bone marrow will integrate perfectly into his body. We have more than a 50% chance that my son will recover. And then? Will you let me go home?" Helen looked at the doctor with hope. He remained silent. "All right, let's start right now." The doctor opened another door and pushed Helen inside. It was something like an operating room, equipped with the latest technology. On a high bed lay a young man, about 16 or a little older. Thin, pale, covered in wires connected to various machines. It seemed he was no longer living in this world. Hell began for Helen. Every day, the doctor drained almost liters of blood from her. Anesthesia, some horrific procedures. Helen's entire body ached, covered in bruises and needle marks and small cuts. Her head was clouded from the anesthesia and countless drugs. This nightmare continued for 4 years. If a weaker woman had been in Helen Fix's place, she would probably have died long ago from this brutality, but Helen's body fought to the end. She dreamed of seeing Sam and their daughter one more time. Probably, this hope was the only thing keeping her on Earth. But one day, while sitting in her cubby, Helen heard an inhuman scream, like something out of a horror movie. She couldn't make out the words. The soundproofing was excellent. After a while, Dr. March burst into the room where Helen had lived for 4 years. She tried to repeat her name, the names of her loved ones, every day to remember. Her mind became increasingly muddled, and her appetite was gone. Though Dr. March forced her to eat, he needed her blood. Healthy blood, rich in micro and macro elements, as he said. "You failed," he yelled. "I won't let you go home. You will die too, just like my boy." He pointed a revolver at Helen. But it wasn't Helen Fix's fate to die from a bullet. The doctor slipped on gloves that had fallen out of his pocket. A shot rang out. Her t-shirt around the shoulder area started to turn crimson. The blood wouldn't stop. Helen realized she had to run, and she had to run now. She dashed to the door but fell because the doctor grabbed her leg. Helen, with her last strength, pulled her leg free and began to crawl to the door. But what was the use? The door was locked. She saw that Dr. March had a heavy bunch of keys in his pocket. Helen turned around. The doctor was lying unconscious. Or was he dead? There was no time to think about it. Helen leaned over the doctor and began to rummage through his pockets. Empty. No, this can't be true. He had opened the door when he came in. So, the keys were in the operating room. Helen took a deep breath and rushed there. Dr. March's exhausted son, whom they had proposed to disconnect more than 4 years ago, lay on his high bed. His mouth was slightly open, like a fish trying to breathe on land. The keys were on a shelf near the operating table, a table Helen had grown so accustomed to over the years. She had just grabbed the bunch and was about to turn back when she suddenly felt cold on the back of her neck. Dr. March was barely standing, but he still didn't want to let go of the woman he had been using to try and save his son all these years, essentially sacrificing her. You didn't save my boy, he wheezed and was about to pull the trigger. At that moment, the boy lying breathless on his bed suddenly exhaled. That moment was enough for Helen. She kicked the doctor hard in the ankle. He had just moved slightly away from her and had diverted his revolver. Helen darted out and slammed the door behind her. Now, Dr. March had no way to get out. The door could only be opened from the inside with a key. He had designed such a locking system himself. Helen ran without stopping for about an hour. She was at her limit. She was very lucky she found a bottle of water. Apparently, someone had dropped it. She didn't care. Thanks to that bottle, she managed to survive. It took Helen about 2 days to get to the city. She was afraid to hitchhike. She was afraid of everything now, even her own shadow. And then finally, the riverbank and her favorite rock appeared. Helen sank onto it. Tears streamed down her cheeks, she had no strength left. The woman was ready to die. But it didn't matter anymore, as she would die in her homeland, not from the bullet of a mad doctor, but simply from weakness and inability to fight for her life. It was at that moment that Maggie and Sam found her. "My dear girl," Grandma sobbed. "How can the earth still bear that monster?" "Does it bear him?" Helen said thoughtfully. "The door is locked, and he's seriously injured. I told the policeman who visited me in the hospital roughly where that house is. They probably already found him. Dr. March had such mad eyes when he accused me of his son's death, words can't describe it. It was as if he wasn't even human." "He wasn't human," Sam said, clenching his fists. "How can someone destroy another person, especially a mother of a newborn, to save his own son? Who gave him the right? What did he even plan if a miracle happened and his son recovered? Let's not talk about it." Helen put her hand on her husband's. "We will manage, probably." "Helen, darling, what nonsense." "Of course, we will manage. You are very strong. The doctor told me so. I know it myself. You will be the healthiest in the world. And the happiest. I promise you that. I love you so much. I couldn't believe that you wrote that note yourself." "Imagine, Helen, I thought," Grandma interrupted, laughing softly, "I thought you ran off with that guy, Eric. I saw him at the store the day before you disappeared. I even told Sam about it. We were so foolish. We should have hired a private detective. But everything was so hectic. We had baby Maggie to care for. We struggled with those formulas. Sam started having problems at work. My parents had to leave urgently for some business matters. It was a real nightmare. Yes, when I think about it, my hair stands on end." Sam smiled and looked at his wife with tenderness. "My dear ones, I've missed so much. I deprived my daughter of breast milk, didn't see her grow up, start walking and talking. God bless you, Helen. It's not your fault. You've suffered more than all of us combined." Grandma Cara patted her granddaughter's hand. "Don't think about it, my mermaid," Sam smiled. "You have plenty of time to make up for lost time, and if you really want to repeat it, we can give our daughter a brother or sister. Of course, when you fully recover." Helen was silent. She felt so good at home, where nothing threatened her, and there was absolutely nothing to fear. Ahead was only happiness and new hopes and aspirations. The next day was quite difficult for Helen. She spent several hours at the police station, repeatedly describing what had happened to her more than 4 years ago. Dr. March was found dead in the very room where Helen had locked him. But he didn't die from the wound Helen noticed on his shoulder. He shot himself in the temple with the last bullet. His 20-year-old son John was found still lying on the same high bed as he had been all the years Helen had spent in captivity. Helen was so grateful to the universe and this boy, who then distracted his father, even though he was already dead. It happens that air escaping from the body creates the illusion of breathing, sometimes even opening the eyes. How timely it happened then with John March. Helen was released home around 3 in the afternoon and told that she would not be disturbed anymore. The police learned everything they needed from her. The whole family breathed a sigh of relief. Helen gradually began to recover. She had to take various vitamins and other medications for a full recovery. She refused a psychotherapist. "You are my best therapist," Helen smiled at Sam when he offered to find her a good specialist. "Do you still remember? Back then, on that rock?" "Of course, I remember, Sam. How could I forget? That rock is magical. We met there twice." "Yes, you're right. It definitely has some incredible power. Maybe you charged it. You said you loved sitting there since childhood." Sam pulled his wife close and kissed her on the crown of her head. "I don't know. It's unlikely I have the power to charge stones. Maybe you just don't realize it, my mermaid. I told Maggie that a mermaid gave her to me, who swam away on business. She was so indignant that the mermaid dared to leave her and swim away." Sam laughed. "Sam, you're something else. There's no better man on this planet. I love you so much. I was sure you had another woman, that you filed for divorce and remarried. All those years I spent in that mad Dr. March's closet, I never stopped thinking about you all. I tried to imagine how our daughter was changing. You named her Maggie, as we planned. And we never stopped thinking about you. How many times we went to the police? How many times we were refused, referring to that damned note?" They were silent for a while. There was no one at home. Grandma and Maggie had gone for a walk, and Sam's parents, who had come to visit their daughter-in-law and celebrate her return, had already gone home. It was quiet and cozy. Helen snuggled up to her husband and rested her head on his shoulder. It felt to her as if they were 17 again, just getting to know each other. "Hell lie, you need to think only about the fact that all the bad things are behind you, and all the good things are here and now, waiting for you, and all of us, ahead. Go back to painting rocks. It always calmed you and gave you new strength. Remember?" "Yes, I remember. But I should start thinking about going back to work. I still need to find a job." "Don't think about that for now. My business is going well, so I can definitely provide for my beloved family. Spend more time with Maggie. She loves drawing too, by the way." "Yes, you're right, my sweet Sammy. Listen, that's a great name for candies. Don't you think?" "Yeah, and in this series, there'd be Peppery Sammy, Sour Sammy, and Salty Sammy, or no, Sammy's Tears. Cool, huh?" "Oh, you're such a joker, Sam." Helen laughed. "Sammy's Tears. What an idea." Suddenly, Sam's phone rang. It was Helly's school friend Vicky. "Vicky, hi," Helen exclaimed, grabbing the phone from her husband. "Hi, Hell, only she called her friend that. I can't reach you. Did you change your number?" "Yes, Vicky, where are you now?" "I just got back to our hometown. I really need to talk to you. Can we meet at a cafe?" "Sure, I don't mind. Haven't seen you in ages. Do you know nothing about me? Am I supposed to know something? We left right after graduation, and now we decided to come back. Let's meet soon. I want to know all the details." They talked endlessly. Helen briefly recounted everything that had happened to her. "Oh my God. Hell, I can't believe it. What a horror. I wouldn't have survived in that hell. My poor girl." Vicky took her hand and gently started massaging each finger. Vicky always did this when she tried to calm or cheer her up. Helen loved this gentle massage. "I missed your magical massage so much," Helen said blissfully. "Listen, Hel. I want to propose a little venture. I don't know if it'll work out, but it's worth a try." "What venture?" Helen looked at her friend with interest. "I want to organize something like a leisure center for children and teenagers, or maybe just for children. I haven't decided yet. There's nothing here. Kids either wander around aimlessly or get glued to gadgets. What kind of center would it be? I need to think it through." but I definitely know who will lead the art classes. You are a jack of all trades. Your painted rocks always mesmerized me. I still have them all safe and sound. I admire them before going to bed. And what else? I'll be teaching dance. We need something else, but this will be enough for now. Are you in, my friend? I'm in. But how do we organize it all? Don't worry. Everything's ready. I've done something similar before, and now I just decided to return to my hometown. Let's make it better. In reality, Vicky had run away from an unhappy love. She decided that it would be much easier to cope with this pain in her hometown. She was right. She already felt much better, especially after talking to her beloved school friend, whom she hadn't seen in years. Helen was recovering quickly. She spent time with her daughter. They painted, decorated rocks, and sculpted from different types of clay. Helen had missed creating so much while being locked up at Dr. March's, constantly undergoing those dreadful procedures, that she couldn't stop. Maggie easily picked up on these emotions and also immersed herself in the process of creating beauty. She didn't care what to do as long as it was with her mom, whom she had met recently and loved with all her heart since that day on the shore when she saw her sitting on the rock and crying. Vicky started acting actively. But there was a problem. They couldn't find a good space. They had to start with a small one. It was impossible to hold dance classes there, but it was suitable for the art workshop. Helen and Vicky were bringing it into proper condition. They decided to do everything themselves to save money. Vicky had some savings. Helen also had some money she had saved up for her child when she was still working, and the money was still in her account. One day, Helen was walking home from their almost-ready studio. As usual, she strolled along the shore. It was her favorite path, thoughtfully looking at the stones under her feet and picking out the most suitable ones for painting. Helen fix, she suddenly heard a man's voice. When Helen looked up, her legs gave way, and she couldn't breathe. In front of her stood Dr. March. Yes, it was him, only groomed, clean-shaven, and elegantly dressed. You. The police said you shot yourself in the temple. Helen squeezed the stone she had found a few minutes ago in her fist. What? The man asked, puzzled. Oh, I understand. You mistook me for my brother. We were often confused before. My name is David March. I would like to talk to you and first of all apologize for everything Michael did to you. It's hard to believe. What do you want? What do you want to talk about? Helen struggled to find the words. Memories of the horror she had endured flooded over her. Can we talk somewhere quietly? Maybe at a cafe? Yes, of course. Let me show you a small cafe. They have good coffee and very tasty pastries. That sounds great, let's go. The cafe was crowded. That was a good thing. Nothing could happen here for sure. They sat at a table in the farthest corner of the cafe and ordered a cup of coffee and a pastry each. Helen, I want to make up for everything you had to go through because of my brother. He completely lost it when John's condition worsened. He protected the boy as best as he could, did everything for him to live comfortably. His wife ran away as soon as she found out their son was ill. She decided she couldn't handle it and thought it better to leave, disappear from the lives of her husband and son, and never come back. My brother had a tough time. He tried to cure John all those years, studied the disease thoroughly, and dared to try the latest developments. Maybe he could have succeeded if John hadn't run out onto the balcony in the middle of the day when the sun was blazing. He suddenly felt unwell, and Michael didn't find him immediately. The boy fell into a coma, but Mike decided not to give up. He took him from the hospital under his responsibility and moved him to his country house. He had planned to set up a clinic there. I don't know exactly what he had in mind, but what happened happened. I am very sorry you had to go through all this. Mr. March paused for a bit, stirring his coffee with a spoon. I am inheriting my brother's house. He has no other heirs. I want this house to belong to you. You can sell it, for example, or do whatever you think is right with it. But why do you need this? Helen was surprised, breaking off a piece of her pastry with a spoon. It's not your fault. You have nothing to do with this. I believe it would be very good to compensate you for the moral damage, at least partially. My brother treated you terribly, so please allow me to do this from the bottom of my heart. Let the house that became your prison now bring benefit, now that you are free for happiness and joy. You are a very good person, Mr. March, Helen said quietly. But still, I don't think it's necessary to do this. No, it's decided. I just wanted to warn you so it wouldn't be a surprise. If you want, I can sell the house first, and the proceeds will go into your account. I don't think you'd want to live there, he smiled sadly. Definitely not. I don't even want to go near that place, Helen shuddered. It's settled then. I'll take care of everything. Leave me your number, please. It might be needed for various formalities. Vicky was right when she said she wanted to make the town better and more beautiful. With the money Helen received from David March, she and Vicky bought an excellent house almost on the riverbank and set up a creative studio and a dance studio there. At first, there were few people, but then Flower on the Stone, as this center for children and teenagers was called, became a fairly popular place in the town. Helen and Vicky began to think that they needed more specialists because it was becoming hard to handle everything on their own. Moreover, they planned to organize fitness classes as well. One day, in search of inspiration, Helen was wandering along the riverbank. The river always brought breathtaking ideas. Suddenly, she heard a young woman talking. She was chatting on the phone. Listen, it's a wonderful place. They only have dance and creative workshops so far. They say there will be fitness classes too. My Nessie loves it. And the location is convenient. If you walk along the bank past the stone with the lotus on it. Remember, I sent you the photo, and you were so amazed? It looks so real. How well it's painted. And it glows in the dark. A masterpiece. So, if you walk past this wonder and turn left, you'll immediately see this center with a bright sign Flower on the Stone. I can show you myself. Helen smiled. It was nice to hear praise from people like this, just walking along the riverbank. Helen stopped by her favorite boulder, where a lotus with translucent petals of delicate pink color proudly stood. It seemed to grow right out of this huge stone against the laws of nature. Helen had poured all her love for this world and for those who helped her survive and live happily into this lotus. Helen admired the flower for a bit, blew it a kiss, and walked on. There was still much to do, so much to do.